an AppleVis original. Hello and welcome everybody to AppleVis Extra number 88, discussion of the Apple's Far Out event. Yes, my name is Thomas Domville, also known as Anonymous. I'm here with my other AppleVis editorial team members. We got Dave Nason. How you doing, Dave?
I am very good. Thank you, Thomas.
Excellent. I'm glad you're here. And we also have Tyler Stevens. How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm good.
Well, guys, I don't know about you, but that's supposedly supposed to be a really far out event. I yet to see what was so far out about it. Anybody get the why it was called the Far Out by any chance?
Yeah, it didn't really twig with me at first anyway why it was called that after watching it, it isn't even a criticism of Apple because the iPhone is, this is the 16th year I think of the iPhone, something like that. So it's not going to be like far out every time, is it? But a perfectly serviceable event, but I wasn't quite sure why it was called Far Out, but you guys might have some theories.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of, again, echoing to your point, I don't think it was very far out in terms of the features or far out of expectations of what the rumor mill was speculating. I think they were pretty much on target by and large. I think the only thing I can think of is that it's a sort of an allusion to satellite technology, which we'll get into later in the recording. But you think like far out satellites, clever tagline, I don't know, something like that.
I'm with you, Tyler. I think it has something to do with the satellite connection, which, as you said, we'll be discussing in a moment. But yes, it was pretty much on par of what we were expecting. So if you've been listening to the Unleashed podcast, we've been discussing about the various specifications and stuff that you can expect in the events. And it wasn't too far from what we thought about. There was a few surprises, so let's dive into this. Well, the first thing that came up in the event was the set of Apple Watches. So let's break this down to three different sections. So Apple Watch, let's talk about the first part, which is the regular Apple Watch. So the 8th series is finally rolled out, and it now has a new temperature sensing feature. So they were really going deep into this with the woman health, being able to check the ovulation and being able to figure out when it was the best time to conceive and things like that. And so with that, it doesn't seem like it was like an actual body temperature feature. So it isn't like I can take a temperature. It seems like it was more of a long-ranging thing that you want to watch over a period of time. We also got the new set of accelerometers and gyroscope for crash detection. So if you are in a car crash, whether that's front end, rear end, side, or airbag going off, it has all sorts of really cool sensors within the watch itself that will be able to determine if you're in a crash. Very much like the fall detection as such, it will call SOS to your emergency responder if you need it to. The other cool item that we're mentioning, it was the lower power mode, which will now give you up to, theoretically, 36 hours on low power mode, which thankfully that feature is available on Series 4 and above. So I'm really excited about that. And then lastly, we have international roaming now being included with the cell version of the Apple Watch. So what do you guys think of this new 8th series, just the standard? I'll start with Tyler.
I don't have an Apple Watch, and this does not change my overall impressions of the device. It's not something I'll be getting. Pretty much what I consider some things that sound cool. Like I think the temperature detection feature is something that we should probably keep our eyes on as as years progress, because this is a start. I saw a report about what to expect from this feature, I believe from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, and he basically said that it's not, at this time, that the temperature sensing on the Apple Watch is not for detecting fevers or something like that. It's more for like ovulation tracking and things like that, things that were discussed today. But I mean, it doesn't really I feel like the update to the Apple Watch, the Series 8, was pretty much incremental. So it doesn't really change. I won't be getting one.
What about you, Dave?
Yeah, I suppose people who have been listening to me for a long time will know that I like the Apple Watch, but I'm not like a massive Apple Watch fan. I've only had two. I had the original, and then I have a Series 4 now. So I should be getting towards an upgrade, but I'm not sure if this is moving the needle enough for me to upgrade. It's fine. The temperature thing is interesting. I think, like Tyler said, and you said, it's probably version 1 of it, and it may be interesting to look at over time. I think they said it can be used for other things as well as the ovulation, like maybe fevers, but it's probably not officially approved for those things, I'm guessing. And the main feature is the women's health side of it, which is a great feature. But beyond that, I'm not quite sure what it really adds. Okay, it's improved accelerometers and things, but they're very much incremental, as Tyler said. I think it's got the same chip as the 6 and the 7, so I'm in a situation where, well, I'm on a 4, and next time I upgrade, I want it to be a big upgrade because it might be another 3 or 4 year cycle for me. So I'm kind of waiting almost for a slightly bigger upgrade before I jump in.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have a Series 5. I went from a Series 1 to a Series 5. That was a big jump for me. And so I am not quite ready to jump up. The phone, or I should say the watch, is doing great. It does everything I want. Now, it does include some of the new features. This is just a slight update. It is what, like Tyler says, it's more of a S model. So it's just a slight enhancement from last year's model, from the 8th. But, I went away with it like I don't need it either. I am curious. Tyler, what would persuade you to buy a watch? Is there a feature that you want, or?
So, I mean, maybe if I really became a diehard fitness enthusiast, like I work out regularly, I use the elliptical, I do some kayaking every now and again, sailing, skiing, things like that, but not regularly enough currently where I track my performance. So where I would track it over time, or where I would want to get my notifications on something other than my phone, say if I was in a pool or hot tub or something like that, and really wanted to check my notifications or check the time, something like that. Or if there was any other feature, beyond what I'm envisioning now, features that a watch could do, hypothetically, that my phone could not. And for my use case, there's nothing that the Apple Watch can do that my phone can't.
Sure.
And so that you sort of mitigates the need, the desire and overall need for an Apple Watch. I've considered getting one over the years just to test out, like for things like beta testing or see how certain things work as an experiment. But I feel like for testing, if you don't have a pre-established use case, you can't perform a fair test.
Sure.
So that's where,
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I stand in regards to the
fair.
Apple Watch.
I think a lot of people are probably in your boat. It's like, I got the iPhone. It does pretty much everything I need. And so I don't really need a watch at this point. I'd be curious. Now, there was the second Apple Watch that we mentioned, which is the Apple Watch SE. So this is the second generation. And what's really unique about this is this did get a big update. So in terms of size factor and things like that, this is something we want to look forward to, and this is it. So we're talking about a 30% size increase. So the face size is bigger and 20% faster. So this got the new H series chip in it. So it is now pretty quick and fast. It also has a crash detection. Now, the SE, of course, doesn't have all the sensors in it, so it's not going to get the blood oxidation or the AFib sensor. Any of those sensors it doesn't include. But for an SE, I thought this was a big update for it. And it still is at $249, which is not bad considering it's $399 for the regular Apple Watch itself. So let's go with Dave on this. What do you thought of the SE itself, and what prevents you from going to an SE instead of just the regular watch?
I think it's a great deal, actually, the SE. I think for a lot of people, if you're in Tyler's boat and you're kind of thinking, well, maybe I'll try an Apple Watch, I think this is a great way to go. It's a really good price point, and it does most of what the Series 8 does. It's like you say, it's one or two of the sensors, and it does your heart, regular kind of heart measurement. Like if you're out for a run, it'll track your heartbeat. You know what I mean? It's the kind of more complex stuff like the ECG and the blood oxygen that it doesn't have. Right. So I think it is definitely a good deal. I think versus a Series 4, maybe, which I have now, I don't know if it's much different, because it doesn't. What I'm missing in this one is the blood oxygen as well, and maybe I just need a speed bump in another year. But so maybe next year, if there's another SE, I would consider the SE rather than say the Series 9 or whatever. If they do it again.
So you would probably consider an SE third generation when the next one comes out instead of just a regular version, huh?
I'd certainly look at them. I'd certainly give it serious thought. And it's funny, because when you're asking Tyler about what would make him buy an Apple Watch, and for me, the Apple Watch is a lot of little things that I like. So I do fitness tracking. I got when I run, I use it for kind of timing and keeping an eye on the heart rate and things like that. But it's even the notifications. I prefer getting a little buzz on my wrist, a silent buzz on my wrist, versus getting my phone making noises and so on. And
so it comes down to sounding like the both of you are looking for something that would benefit you. So what you want is already on the SE, where I want more the health aspect for the EKG and the AFib and those sort of things as I get older.
I do like that now, and I have that on the Series 4. I have the EKG.
Mm-hmm.
So the blood oxygen would interest me, and that's, sensors like that are what would probably make my mind up, how valuable are those extra sensors that the regular watch has, and that's the decision I'd have to make.
Tyler, what do you think of the SE then for this year?
The SE, I think it's a good update for people who are looking to get into the Apple Watch. Like if I was looking to get an Apple Watch, I think the SE would be what I'd get, rather than dive headfirst into a Series 8. What's interesting, and we can go into more about this later when we talk about the iPhone, is that the Apple Watch Series 8 and the Apple Watch SE have the same chip, the budget and the mid-range, and presumably the Ultra. And the iPhone, which is interesting, as they're doing for the first year, is they are, while they're doing this fit-chip parity with the Apple Watch, they're separating it for the iPhone between the A15 Bionic with 5 GPU cores versus the new A16 Bionic. So that was just an interesting observation, the divergent directions they're going with that. I don't know if that's just for this year with the chip manufacturing issues that have plagued the industry, or if that's part of their more long-term strategy. I don't know, but just an interesting observation that I found.
That is interesting how all three watches have the same chip, as you say, where the iPhones are a little different this year. They've been like that with the iPhone. It had to differentiate a little bit, but as Tyler has mentioned, yes, we now have a new Apple Watch now called the Watch Ultra, which I thought was going to be the Watch Pro, but the Watch Ultra is the new name for this new rugged device that's geared for athletes and explorers out there alike. Really, this is going to be a more of a heavy-duty style watch that's going to be able to endure extreme weather, and things like that. This is going to be definitely hardcore watch users. I think this is going to be more towards people that are in or with activities that's going to have heavy impact on the watch. So just say the typical watch is more fragile and temperamental, as into temperatures, things like that. So this is more of an ultra version. This baby is in a titanium casing. I mean, if you need to say anything else, titanium is always like, oh, I love titanium. So it's durable. So it's going to be very durable and tough to bend or crack or niche. What I really was blown away, one of the surprise I got was this baby is 49 millimeter. That is huge compared to I think mine is a 41. So I was thinking, holy smokes, that's so much bigger. They introduced a new speakers to it, so now it's got louder. So if you are into something you need more of a louder audio, this is something you might want to contend with and think about. My understanding is supposed to be twice as loud, which is pretty loud already, I thought. So to make it twice as loud, that's really super. That can probably be useful for those out there that are using this for voiceover and not able to hear very well with some sort of a hearing impairment. This louder audio might be something for you to consider. And has a bigger crown diameter, so for those wearing gloves, so if you're in football or baseball or whatever, winter, you'll be able to adjust the crown easier. It has a whopping 36 hours of battery life on this, which is, I think, it's just unbelievable. It has an additional button, which they call the action button. This button will be configured to your liking. So let's just say if you're a runner, you can mark your segment, your waypoints on the running trail or marathon. It has issues for divers. They can see how deep they are and within water and etc. It is able to go down to 30 meters. That is unbelievable. That's like 140 feet, I think.
Yep.
And I was also surprised that it was only $799. Now I'll catch myself. I said only because I thought it was going to be $999. $799.
Yeah, me too.
That is a chunk of change, but you're getting a really good quality watch. Dave, what do you think of the Ultra?
Really cool. Not for me, but really cool. So, like the big screen, I guess, like you say, yeah, massive screen. So you're out and people want to see their maps, things like that, I guess. You're out in a windy mountain somewhere you want to hear, so you need that extra speaker. This is the kind of way I think they were selling it, is that it's very much rugged kind of thing. I really like the idea of that action button. I'd quite like that on my watch. I can imagine, there's uses where you might find that having an extra button for things like segments or whatever it might be useful. But
I was thinking more for those with accessibility needs. So the bigger screen, definitely. If you're low vision, you want a bigger screen. Apple Watch isn't big enough. This definitely would be bigger. The louder audio, like you mentioned, they tout that as one of those kind of like, here I am. There was a moment there where they did a demonstration of this piercing sound. It was really like a really high pitch. And I want to say it was like 180 decibel that it produced, and it can be heard by 600 feet. So if somebody was trying to find you, you can emit. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, that is really loud. So that
like
kind
when,
of...
when you're on a plane and they give you the life jacket with the whistle.
Oh, okay. The whistle.
You can set off your watch to go.
That is amazing. And so it's not for me either. I would never have any interest in this unless I was a die-hard scuba diver. This would be definitely for... I mean, they tout that big time for divers.
Yeah. I think what's interesting as well is, like, because it's so much bigger and chunkier, is it a watch that... I know it has huge battery life, but maybe you want to wear it all weekend on a weekend away adventuring, but do you want to wear it Monday to Friday, you know what I mean, in your day to day? Is it too big and chunky and uncomfortable? I don't know. I'd be interested to see kind of how big and chunky it really feels in real life, but I don't feel like I want a bigger watch.
Device.
That is an interesting question, Dave. It's like you say, if you're let's just say I'm a businessman and I got to go to work on the weekdays, and then I do these sports or whatever not on the weekends. Is this watch going to be something I can wear all the time? I almost say no, because like you said, it'd be too big. Now, if you're a big person, then this watch is probably going to be for you. But I'm thinking these smaller size people, Like my mom would be like 5 foot tall. So, I mean, could you imagine? She would never get that because it's too big.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still one of those delusional people who's hoping they'll bring out a round one, but...
Well, it would be very enticing if I was into hardcore outdoor exploration or deep diving or something like that. But as I'm not, I don't see much of a use case. Kind of a similar rationale for me why I'm not particularly interested in the other Apple Watch models.
This baby's big and chunky, isn't it?
It is. Is there 49 millimeters?
Yep.
I saw.
The screen is 49 millimeter, which is going to be big. I think this is definitely going to be a niche market. I can see some people loving this and most of us not. So that's going to be what I think is going to happen. But I am glad that they finally came out with the rugged version. This has been long overdue. I know lots of people wanted an Apple Watch that they can wear during sports that isn't going to be fragile and break. So that makes a lot of sense to me. And hey, let's go ahead on to the next segment.
Do you know,
what's that?
There's one other point on watch, actually.
What you got?
I'm curious to know, because they mentioned international roaming.
Yes.
Now, I'm here in Ireland, and we don't even have the cellular Apple Watch.
Really?
They never brought it out here, and I'm guessing there's a lot of other countries the same. So I'm wondering, is this a signal that maybe other countries will also get the cellular one, or is it just a case that the people in the countries like yourself who have it will you be able to come to Ireland and use your one, but I can't get one? So I'm curious to see.
Yes, because so here they give us a cell watch version, and it connected to our carrier. When we go international, say we go to Europe, for example, we are stuck with international roaming with our carrier. So this is kind of a subpar when it comes to data transfers and phone calls costs money, text is free. So we have to pay a certain dollars to get 4G instead of LTE, or I'm sorry, 3G. That I am curious. I didn't realize they don't sell the cell version in Ireland. I'm curious if Europe does, because you guys don't have international roaming. It's all part of the EU. It's covered, right?
Yeah, kind of. It's roaming within the EU. You can use your at-home stuff at the same cost, but there's data limits. That's the only difference.
Okay, so you're confronted the same limitations we do. Maybe roaming would be a better word than international roaming.
Maybe. I don't know.
I know that if you come here in the United States with one, you'll be using international roaming. So that's a good question. I don't know. I do know what it's like if we go to Europe. We're on international roaming, which is a whole different.
I just thought it was interesting they mentioned international roaming on the Apple Watch.
They tout that. I was like, okay, that's interesting. Not that it's a big deal, but anywho, this one is for you, Dave. I was thinking of you on this. I don't think this will suit Tyler and I, since we're hearing impaired, so we both have hearing aids. I would love to get one of these, but it just won't work. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about the AirPods 2.0. So yes, the second generation is now here, finally. It has the new H2 chip technology, so it has a better, faster chip within the AirPod 2.
AirPod Pro 2, we should say.
AirPod Pro 2. I wonder if they're going to be calling that AirPod 2 or AirPod Pro.
It'll definitely have the Pro, whether it'll have the 2.
AirPods Pro.
Exactly. It's got better clarity. It's got the new low distortion features that allows you to be able to hear things better than ever. It has a personalized spatial audio feature. And my favorite is that it has double the power of active noise cancellation. I thought, wow, double. And then it has something called adaptive transparency mode. I love this too. This means that anything that's really loud while you're in transparency mode will be automatically reduced for you, so you're not left wincing to the loud noise coming through transparency. It has finally. I always thought the touch control would come with the first generation. Did not. You have these buttons. Now they have touch control on there, so you just swipe up and down to increase volumes. And it has a 6 hours life, which is a 30% longer battery life for your AirPod Pro. And it has a lovely speaker added to the battery case or the case itself, which I really love. So now you can be able to do the Find My and find your case. But my favorite is the watch charger. You can now use Apple Watch charger to charge your case along with the MagSafe. I mean, wow. And it's still at the price of $249. All right, Dave, this is for your time to shine. I know you love AirPod Pro. Tell me about it.
Oh, I am. Yeah, this stole the show for me because this is the one thing that will have me opening my wallet next week. I think. I genuinely think, like, for me, AirPods and AirPods Pro are among the very best products that Apple have released in the last decade. Like, I think they're amazing, or 5 years, whatever it's been. I absolutely love my AirPods Pro, and they're now coming up to 3 years old. I think the AirPods Pro, if I'm not mistaken, and mine are still running well, and the battery hasn't completely died. I'm still getting a good couple of 2-3 hours, I think, out of them. So I could hang on a while longer, but at the same time, I see these in my future.
I'm jealous. It would be so awesome, but I can't complain. I have the AirPod Max, but this would be so nice to have in place.
Yeah, I love the noise cancellation on AirPods Pro is decent for what they are. It's not amazing. So the fact that that's getting better is really cool. So I'm really happy to see that. And I think the new charging, being able to, even though I would prefer if it was USB-C rather than Lightning as a wired option, the fact that now you can charge them on your watch charger or MagSafe is brilliant, because before the current AirPods Pro, you can do them wirelessly, charge them wirelessly, but there was no magnetic, so you had to kind of sit it perfectly on the thing, and it was very awkward. And the fact that there's a sound as well, so now when you connect, it'll actually make a little sound like your phone does, so that it's charging, which again, for people in our community, is quite a useful feature. So there's a lot of those little features as well. I think these are great.
That's what makes this so compelling, is that when you look the difference between the previous version, whether that's watch, phone, or AirPod Pro, this definitely has the biggest tick box being checked off for me, as in, whoa, this is kind of big, this is big, this is big. Mm-hmm. I think this is a night and day difference when it comes to one version to another. And it didn't surprise me they stuck with the Lightning, I think because this was in design, and they were going through models of this early of this year. So USB-C wasn't really being discussed or being required. And so it didn't surprise me. But I assure you, and we all know the AirPod Pro 3 will definitely have that. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, yes, this is huge for you, Dave. I was like, I bet he's going to get it. Tyler, you're just like me. We're hearing impaired, so this doesn't really affect us. But I thought this was a really cool device. If I could use it, that would be the same for you?
Yes. One thing that I was reading a little about, but I didn't hear much about it today, is audio switching. That's something that a lot of people in our community have talked about. And, the unreliability of Bluetooth audio switching between the AirPods and Mac and iPhone and Apple Watch. And if there was talk that this new second generation AirPods Pro would improve upon that tech and make it more seamless. I didn't hear much about that today, but I'm curious what
they mentioned that it now has a U1 chip in it. And that U1 chip is what makes connectivity magic. I know that makes a big difference on my HomePod Mini, is that U1 chip in there. Did you hear that, Dave? The U1 chip?
I heard that in the presentation, but it was like Tyler, and I think there was a bit of chatter on our own team email about it earlier, about articles that were talking about better connection. It would be great. What I find is if you're talking about just media, as they work pretty well. So I start playing something on my phone, it'll it'll pick that up. If I then pick up my iPad and start playing something on YouTube, it'll switch over automatically. It kind of works. Where we have problems is VoiceOver doesn't switch reliably.
Gotcha.
And I would particularly find when I'm out and about, I find it's very difficult to use my Apple Watch because I can't hear VoiceOver when I'm out and about very well. So
Gotcha.
if I wear my AirPods and I could just look at my Apple Watch and AirPods would just take the audio and then go back to my phone and the AirPods would take the audio back from that would be great.
Here's for hoping. I think I'm just going out on the limb on this, but I would think the connectivity is better. I mean, for a second generation, they always try to make things better. Let's hope that's in there. Well, let's dive into the last segment of this podcast, and we are going to talk about the various iPhones. So the first time ever, Apple have kind of broken this down into two segments for the iPhone. So we have the standard iPhone users, and then we have the iPhone Pro users. So we're going to focus on the standard phone for now. And this is goodbye to the Mini and hello to the iPhone Plus. So
I was going to say, can we have a moment's silence for the Mini?
A moment of silence here for Dave. He's going to miss his Mini, and I think he is not alone. I think there's going to be a lot of people going to be wincing to the fact that there is no more Mini. So we're going back to the standard 6.1 inch for the standard iPhone 14, and the iPhone 14 Plus is now going to be the 6.7 inch models. But we can talk about the new things that are going to be in this phone. So to me, I think they're lackluster. So let's dive into it. The chip that is in this phone is not the same as is it going to be with the iPhone 14 Pro. This is the first time ever that they've done this splitting up with the chip. And I am not a big fan of this. I'm thinking they're doing this because of cost effectiveness, as inflation is going so high. They don't want to raise the price, but they got to figure out how to keep the price as is. And I think that's one of the compromise they had to do. So the chip in this iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Plus is the same chip you will find in the iPhone 13 Pro. So it is an update over the iPhone 13, but you get the iPhone 13 Pro chip in this new iPhone 14.
So if that's not clear, it's because last year they were both on the A15 chip. I think had the Bionic version, is that it? And it has just more of a graphics modules. So it's the same chip, but it was a slightly enhanced version of the same chip. Whereas this time it's A15 Bionic in one and A16 in the other. So it's
exactly
two different chipsets.
So you got more of the enhanced version of what 13 Pro got, but you'll be getting an iPhone 14. The other surprise, I was stunned. I'll be honest, I was completely stunned that they kept at the 12 megapixel camera. Yes, it has better aperture that helps you with low lighting, better focusing, and things like that. It does have a new action mode for video, so it has better stabilization for video. And then I was not surprised, but I forgot about this, is that the US models will now have this new digital eSIM. So no more SIM trays for us. That is going to be a huge question for me, as in, how is this going to work? I mean, not always am I available to go to my carrier and get the SIM changed, but do I have to go to carrier, or is this going to be all digitally done over the air? So if I got a new carrier, does it just work magically? How's this work? I don't know. There's a lot of questions around this.
That passed me by entirely, that piece of news, because I had heard rumors that was coming in the iPhone 15 next year.
So that is done, but it's for US models only. It has the standard crash detection as we found in our watch, which is kind of a cool thing. So it has new accelerometer and gyroscope. But the big thing they touted was the emergency SOS via satellite. Now, let me explain this a little bit to our folks here. This is meaning if you are in an area without cell, you are able to connect your phone directly to a satellite above you, but in a limited fashion. So in other words, it's not like I can text my friends back and forth. It's for emergency messaging, my understanding, to emergency responder that will help you, assist you, find you, rescue, whatever you need. However, it does have a Find My location, so you can share your Find My with your friends to tell them where you are at. So they'll be able to, you want to update them as you're hiking or camping where you don't have cell reception. The thing is about this, guys, is that it says the first 2 years is free. I was like, uh-oh, this is going to be a service? I really want to hear what you guys thought on the standard phone. So let's start with Tyler.
So the iPhone 14, I agree, is lackluster. I don't like what they've done with the chips. I think it's confusing because we have the iPhone 14 with the A15 and the iPhone 14 Pro with the A16. And further complicating things, we have the watch, which has, the SE, and the watch, the regular watch, and the Ultra have the same chip. And then with the Apple Silicon-based Macs, with similar architecture, we have like the trend of M1, for the low-end or sort of consumer-grade machines. And then we have like M1 Pro, M1 Max, M1 Ultra, and then M2. And then I assume we'll be getting like M2 Pro, M2 Ultra, or whatever. And so now we have different chip numberings at least marketing names for different iPhone models, say A15 series chips versus A16 series chips for iPhones of the same generation. That is really a different strategy, and it makes me wonder if perhaps this will be just this year due to the ongoing chip shortage and related supply constraints, or if this is part of something broader.
I think it's more cost effective. I think they are, as I mentioned before, I think this is all about cost. Inflation. Look at the camera. They had to get rid of the 48 megapixel, which we're going to have on the Pro, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So they couldn't put that new in there, and they really couldn't go with the newer chip because that's going to cost more. And I really think it comes down to inflation. But like you, Tyler, it was lackluster. I'm thinking, seriously, if I had a choice between a iPhone 13 Pro and an i14, and we're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars cheaper to get the iPhone 13 Pro, I almost say get that, because I really don't see anything in the iPhone 14 that would out-benefit what the iPhone 13 Pro
I was going to say that.
What is your thought, Dave?
I don't know what the difference is between an iPhone 13 Pro and an iPhone 14 regular. I'm not sure if there's any substantial difference, except the 13 Pro has the stainless steel build, so it's possibly better.
It's got the same chip as the 13 Pro. It's got the same camera as the 13 Pro. And I'm thinking, I'm missing something.
Yeah. It's a 13 Pro in an iPhone 14 body, it seems to me.
Yes.
And I think you're right with cost effectiveness, and I think it's maybe they're trying to get into a situation where there's more differentiation between the regular and the Pro, because maybe in the 12 and 13, maybe people went for the lower one because they didn't really see the benefit in upgrading to the Pro and paying that extra for the Pro. So now maybe it's to try and just put a bit more of a gap between the regular and the Pro. But
it was brilliancy behind Apple. Now, as a consumer, it sucked. It just royally sucks. But for a business, for Apple's side, it was brilliant. It's about time they split it up and it made a difference between the two phones. We've always had years after years. It's like, why do I need a Pro when I got the same chip here, there, and I got the same camera, blah, 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 blah. And now, this year, completely different. Wow. I don't know. So if you would get a new phone, say, Dave, would you stay with your iPhone 14 or your standards as you did with the Mini?
I don't know. If Tim is listening, I have a 12 mini now, and I definitely am not buying a new phone this year. And if there was an iPhone 14 mini, I may have. So But if I am, when I get to the point now, the mini is not going to be around forever, obviously. So when I get to the point of a new phone, it would be the 6.1. It would be the smaller phone I would get. I don't think I'd bother going Pro. Because the Pro to me seems to be like, if you're really into photography, I didn't see a whole lot else. Okay, it's got the newer, faster chip, but we all know now that, to be fair, the phone, last year's chip is still pretty good. So...
Well, that's an interesting point. That's a very good point. What about you, Tyler? Do you think that's the same point as Dave? Do you think that there isn't much in a Pro that you would want?
Yeah, there really isn't. And I feel like phones in the last couple of years, like as upgrades have become more iterative and incremental, not just from Apple, but from other smartphone makers too, I feel like the camera is really one of the main things that gets upgraded each year. And for me, as a totally blind person, the camera, I mean, yes, it's useful in that, using things like Seeing AI and tools like that. But for the type of advanced photography features that they hype, that doesn't do much for me at all to move the needle. So year over year, I think about comparing iPhone models from one year to another, it's not like it doesn't make a huge difference to me, and certainly doesn't justify the cost just to get a camera with features like that and chips, that, while impressively fast, or the existing chips, I probably don't even use that to its full potential. So
true. I think one benefit is that the iPhone 14, I will tell you right now, why I see one benefit with this is that you can get the iPhone 14 Plus. This means, yes, you got a big hunkier phone, but you're not spending as much as a Pro Max costs, and you get that substantial battery life difference. So that could be a big thing for some people out there that want a better battery life, but don't mind a bigger size.
Or just... a lot of people just like the big screen,
right?
They really do. And yeah, that you don't have to go up to the Pro now to get that big screen is a great move by Apple. That makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And I think that's the only beneficial I can see of the iPhone 14. All right, so now we have the upper tier now, which is the iPhone 14 Pro models. So we still have the Pro models, which got the iPhone Pro and the iPhone Pro Max. So it's the same size, 6.1 for the Pro and 6.7 for the Max. So it's the same size models. What is weird, and none of us really understand this quite yet, and this is, they tout this dynamic island. So you're going to hear this quite a bit if you're a Pro user. As I mentioned before in Unleashed, we have talked about they're going to get rid of the notch, and sure enough, they got rid of the notch, and they have this new pill-shaped display. Within this area, my understanding is what they call the dynamic island. And supposedly, instead of not using that real estate on the sides, I'm guessing here, an assumption, I haven't seen it, is that they've now filled this area with a dynamic island. This is where you're going to have some new features with live activities. You're going to get notification in this. So in other words, it's a little area so you can see how much time is left on your timer. It will show you your next direction step up there, just various things that are just like mind-boggling to me because I don't have one in hand, and I'm really curious how this is going to work for us with the status bar. Does that mean the status bar is below the dynamic island, or if the status bar is meshed into this area? I don't know, and it sounds... I know that Apple will make sure this is accessible, but this is probably the most complex and puzzling piece for us that are in a community of being blind.
I'm at a complete loss on this one. I don't understand where it is or what it is properly at all. We already have, no matter what iPhone you have lock screen widgets now. We're getting live update thingies anyway. So I'm not sure what the advantage of this thing is.
We don't know. Obviously, for those who are visual, we're able to see it. I'm assuming it's up in the top middle still. I still think you're going to have this void on each side of it. I'm just assuming it can't. I don't think this display is to the left or right. who knows? But so let's talk about some new features on this. Now, one of the big thing I notice is the higher brightness. Why I bring this up is because the brightness level is more intense, so the brightness is even brighter. I was thinking for my low vision listeners probably would like to see one of these, see if the brightness is something that might be useful to you, especially when you're outside in a daylight circumstance where things could be brighter for you. So I always want to make a note of that. As always, I mentioned that the always on, sure enough, got the always on mode. They have this on the Apple Watch, which I never use. I turn that off. I don't see this beneficial for us that are blind, but for low vision, I think they probably take advantage of this. As Tyler says, this has the new A16 chip. So this is a chip up from what we got in iPhone 13. Now, what's amazing about this is the camera did get a massive update. They did get to the 48 megapixel camera. I don't think OCR is going to be any better with this. I think OCR is really good. I don't think you're going to get any big difference in OCR. Maybe if it's further away, it may be able to read it better. It has improved flash, which is kind of a cool thing. It has doubled the brightness of the flash, and it has more of a control what the flash does. So it kind of situate what it sees and how much of a power to give flash. And I was surprised that they stayed with a standard price of $999 for the Pro and $1,099 for the Pro Max. Now, over to you guys. So we'll go with Dave first. What is your thought on the Pro models?
Yeah, pretty much as expected. I think it's mostly about the cameras and the screen. They're the key kind of differences. Yeah, it's a different build as well. It's got the stainless steel. Some people like that. Some people prefer the aluminum anyway. So that's a subjective thing anyway. It'll do well among people who really deeply care about the camera. And I have to say, I know Tyler said being blind, it's not that much of a priority. There's plenty of people I have friends and family who like their cameras. They take loads of photos of their kids and stuff, but they don't obsess over the quality of the camera to the extent I don't think that they would really care that much about the Pro either. So I do think it's a subset of people, but some people just want to have the best, you know what I mean, the best that they can get.
It's a niche. It's going to be a niche market when it comes to that.
The always on is interesting because I do know friends and family who maybe have moved from Android over to iPhone and have kind of bemoaned the loss of that feature. So I know for people who can take advantage of always on, people do like it. So I think that's good. I assume, I didn't hear it differently, so I assume it's still only the Pro that has the 120 hertz display as well, which matters to people, sighted people and possibly low vision people, but I could be wrong about that.
My understanding is still the same. So the Pro only has 120 hertz refresh. The only thing I've heard that changed differently is the low power mode with the always on. It's only on the Pro, which has got the 1 hertz refresh. Mm-hmm. But I think it remains the same.
Yeah, so there's some good features there. If you're after a new phone and you really do care about those kind of screen and camera features, it's it's a good
don't
phone.
Forget
but again,
the LiDAR.
if you're on the 13 Pro,
yeah,
it's probably not going to be necessary. But if you're on an iPhone 10 or something, you're going to be looking at this phone.
Definitely. And LiDAR, obviously, is still on the Pro only as well. How about you, Tyler? What do you think of this Pro stuff?
Yeah, so if you're really into that kind of photography, like the type of photography features that they were talking about today, then I think the Pro would be a good phone. I didn't see anything that would make me want to upgrade, and I don't think I'm going to be my goal at this point is to not get any new phones until I either know more about the upcoming USB-C transition or I see a USB-C iPhone, because I just don't think it makes much sense to get a phone with Lightning now, only to get, to have iPhones with USB-C and have my charging cables and other possible accessories become deprecated or obsolete in as little as a year. One other benefit possible, I was just thinking in my head, benefits of a Pro model iPhone over a standard model would be LiDAR, theoretically. Now, LiDAR came out 2 years ago, or was introduced in the iPhone 2 years ago, and there was a lot of talk about its potential, but nothing really came of it. There's this new feature, door detection, in iOS 16, and I don't have a Pro model, so I can't test that. But I haven't, for all that was made about it back, in May with GAAP, I haven't really heard much of it, and I think the use is being a Pro, a feature limited to LiDAR-equipped phones. It does sound like a pretty limited niche feature, and so if they really wanted to expand LiDAR, I think in the future, if they brought that down to something like a mid-range or standard phone like the iPhone 14, something like that, that could sweeten the deal, along with, for sighted people or perhaps low vision people, along with the 120 hertz refresh rate, as something to make that phone, somewhat more appealing. I mean, ideally for me, my idea of a phone is a small screen with good performance. That's what what I'm after, ideally, with a phone.
So I'm a iPhone 12 Pro user. As like everybody else, there's nothing here that I would say I want. I'm with Tyler. I'm waiting for the next year model when the USB-C comes out. This is going to be definitely for those that want the Lightning version and want it for one last version of iPhone with the Lightning port. This is for you. If you want to hang out with this for another 4 years before you get another phone, I think that would be for you. When it comes down to accessibility, here's what I think is that with the iPhone 14 Plus is going to be great for the low vision folks that gets a bigger real estate. However, the iPhone 14 Pro will give you a better brightness. You got better refresh, so it's a little bit clearer. So there's some ups and downs, pros and cons to each of these versions of the models that you probably want to look into. I probably will stick with my Pro. If I were to say I want to update it today, I'd probably get the Pro. The reason is pricing. To me, it's $200 difference between the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro. It used to be $300. That used to make that was a big enough difference. But we're talking about $4 a month for me different, because I purchased it or leased out for a month. So $4 more, I'll just get a Pro, hands down, because it's just got newer things on it. I think those with low vision might have better results with better camera, being able to see things better, clarity, and etc. But that's just my thoughts. I appreciate you guys talking about your thoughts on the iPhone 14. And then lastly, before we head on out of here, and I'll get you guys' last input, is iOS 16 will be out coming this Monday, which is the 12th of September of 2022 when you're listening to this podcast. So look for that. Anything you guys like to discuss that we might have missed out, or final inputs for this year Apple Far Out event?
Well, as far as iOS 16, there's not a big feature that really shakes my world. Lock screens, I'm just going to come out and say it's awkward. The custom lock screens at this time is really, the interface is awkward and clunky. I'm not crazy about it. Not to say that it couldn't improve in the future. It probably will. But right now, I don't use that. As far as features of iOS 16, I like those little enhancements, like the weather app, for example, has some more detail, and at least in my experience from testing it and comparing it to the forecast at the same time with the iOS 15 weather app, I feel like, I don't know if it's my imagination or what, because I don't have anything to prove this empirically, but I do find it does seem more, the forecasts seem more detailed and more accurate with the iOS 16 weather app. And in addition, with that app natively, I can get severe weather alerts for my area. I know that's not available everywhere, but that's something that I think would be helpful to get. just to have notifications for something like that. And the only other things I can think of, something like email scheduling, I can see myself using that occasionally, and that's pretty much, I've experimented with. I'll tell you what's crazy is using Eloquence on iOS 16 and macOS Ventura. It's almost like trippy in a way. Like it's like, what the heck? Like, because you picture, like, at least for me, I associate Eloquence with JAWS, on Windows. So when I hear a voice that sounds like a voice I would use on JAWS, say Safari actions available, I'm thinking, wait, what? What's going on here? So yeah, it's interesting. Eloquence isn't something I know a lot of people in the community have fairly significant attachment to. For me, I just use it to play with it. I'm predominantly use the Alex voice, but I do use Eloquence every once in a while. Even just to mess with my own mind, I feel like, because again, it's almost like it sounds like you hear. I almost, at the beginning at least, I'd be like asking myself, it's almost like getting JAWS on an iOS device or Mac.
Right.
But that's kind of my impression of iOS 16. And the only other thing I would say is that, as far as just random thought, as far as Pro models and standard models having two screen sizes, that sounds, what they're doing with that sounds consistent with what reports say that their direction will be going forward, even in terms of the Mac, which I guess the idea is that they'd have a MacBook Air for 13 inches, like what they have now, in addition to a 15-inch MacBook Air, and then a 14-inch and 16-inch MacBook Pro. So that's interesting. I guess they're going to appeal to consumers who want a consumer-grade device with a bigger screen, but not Pro. That's my impression. So I would expect, I would say that we can expect more of that in the future.
How about you, Dave?
Yeah, iOS 16, I kind of like the lock screen. They definitely could improve how you actually go about it, but I do like having those little weather widgets and my little fitness activity rings and things on the lock screen. But yeah, needs a bit of improvement, and those weather things are cool. There's a little thing, focus improvements, that I really like. So before, if I'm not mistaken, you could only say, I want to allow these people, or I want to allow these apps. Whereas now you can also reverse that and say, I want to allow everything except for these people and these apps. So I have now got a personal mode set up where at the weekend or in the evenings, I turn on personal mode and it wipes out, blocks out my work apps, but everything else is allowed, that kind of thing. So that's a nice little improvement to focus that I quite like. And yeah, that's about it really on the far out. I thought it was interesting, just the naming, that they went with iPhone 14 Plus, not Max. But it's the iPhone Pro Max. But yeah, that's just something I noticed.
Makes you wonder if they did that purposely so people don't get confused with the Max. So there's a difference, Plus or the Max.
Yeah, so you've got four very distinct names, like
right.
iPhone 14
instead
Pro,
of the same
Plus,
naming convention. But I'm with Dave on this. I think my most favorite thing is the lock screen, customization, and the focus. That's my two most favorite. Everything else is gravy. Everything else that's cool. But I am a huge fan of the lock screen customization. Now, like what Tyler says, as of the first version of your iOS 16, it is not great. It's clunky. It's not straightforward to understand. And some areas doesn't work. I have a hard time adding different widgets. Just adding things. You should be able to just double tap that and add it, and it doesn't. It just depends where you are and what you're doing. Hopefully, I know. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see any improvements on that until we see 16.1, which would be another month out, which we'll see that. I don't have any additional thing to say for the far out. I thought, well, it wasn't as far out as I want it to be, but I wasn't expecting much to go into this. I think Tyler hits it right on the head. I think this is the new scheme, and I think this is a new direction they're going to go with, is that we're going to have these different models like they are now. That's going to be the thing. Differential and chip and etc. is going to be a big difference between the regular model and the Pro. I think that's going to be something that's going to be more common. But
until the iPhone Flip and the iPhone Fold.
Yeah, the flip phone. Yay! Can you imagine the fold phone? Oh, yeah, and I can get 9 inches phone fold out. Woo! That's for another day, right? Also with the Apple headset, the AR headset. Tyler mentioned about the LiDAR. I agree. I think it's kind of lackluster. Yes, neat. It does some things. However, I do have some friends out there that really are digging the new door detection. They have some unique position where they're in subways, buses. I can see that for them, how that can be very beneficial to them. As myself, I don't really use it that much. So obviously to me, I don't see that big of a difference. But I think the AR headset, oh, wow, that's going to make a big difference. We've got door detection, LiDAR on that. But anywho, this is extra number 88 here with Dave Nason and Tyler Stephen. My name is Thomas Domville, also known as Anonymous. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.
This AppleVis podcast has been brought to you by the community of AppleVis.com. For the latest in resources and tips and tricks to get you the best experience from your Apple device, visit www.applevis.com.